He cheated on me again and again, never once looking sorry. And me? I didn't leave. I didn't forgive either. I just started living life on my own terms. I still live under the same roof as the man who hurt me the most, but I'm not the same woman I used to be. Curious why I chose to stay without falling apart? Watch this story. It's the kind of answer that doesn't need yelling to leave a mark. I'm Claire, 38 years old, divorce attorney. They call me the goddess of the courtroom, not because I like to show off, but because I rarely lose. I work at a major law firm in Chicago, specializing in high-stakes divorce and asset cases. I know every legal loophole, every dirty trick to hide money, and all the ways people emotionally manipulate the very person they once held in their arms every night. I knew everything. And yet, I didn't walk away from my own marriage when I should have. Michael, my husband, was quiet, seemingly kind. He lost his mother when he was young, grew up with a drunk father and a difficult aunt. When I met him, he was working tech support for a software company. Nothing flashy, but stable, soft-spoken, a good listener, the kind of man that makes you want to protect him. And me, I was strong, sharp, independent to the point of cold. I chose Michael because of that. I wanted to soften. I wanted to be the one lifting someone up, instead of always leading the charge. Michael made me feel like I was the cure. At least in the beginning. The early days after we got married were fine. Not fiery, but calm enough to make me believe I'd made the right choice. Michael used to leave little notes on my pillow. Another case one today, Iron Lady? Or, I'm making pasta tonight, just relax. But then, the small things started showing up, like hairline cracks on what looked like a flawless window. One day, I accidentally saw a bank transaction, money sent to a woman named L. Morris. When I asked, Michael said, an old friend. She just got divorced, going through a rough patch. I just wanted to help. I pushed. Helping her, or making up for something from the past? He gave a soft laugh. You don't trust me? You're a lawyer. You know everything here's clean. I stayed quiet and chose to believe him. Less than a month later, while looking for his car keys in his jacket pocket, I found a small photo. A young woman with soft brown hair smiling gently. Not me. I flipped it over. On the back it said, "Be kind, always." I walked into the kitchen holding it. Who's this girl? Michael glanced at it, paused just a second, then answered, someone I couldn't help when I was younger. I keep it to remind myself to be a better man. I looked at him longer than usual. He stared right back, steady, no blink, no flinch. I set the photo down on the table and nodded. No more questions. I told myself, don't be paranoid. He's someone who's been hurt. I can't be the one to step on that old wound. Maybe I'd been too logical in my career for too long, thinking I could negotiate even with emotions. But the truth was, I didn't want to admit I'd married the wrong man. Because if I did, everything I prided myself on, my reason, my strength, my ability to read people, would come crashing down. So I started doing something I never thought I would. Defending my husband, even when he didn't ask me to. He disappeared for a night without notice. I told friends there was a tech issue at work. He came home wearing a shirt that smelled like unfamiliar perfume. I told myself, maybe a female coworker brushed past him. He sat in silence at dinner, distant when I spoke. I excused it. He's just stressed. And me, the woman who built a career exposing cheaters in court, had somehow become a blurry side character in my own story. I even censored my emotions. No confrontations, no drama, never slipping from the image of calm, prideful, in control. I was no longer a wife, not even a woman who wanted to be loved. I'd become something else, a legal partner living with Michael, co-signing loan papers, showing up at events together to maintain appearances, then quietly retreating to my own bedroom, trying to fall asleep without overthinking. And the strange thing was, I pulled it off effortlessly. Not because I was strong, but because I'd been playing the role for so long. I'd started living like covering for him was just part of my script. After the second time I found something hard to explain in Michael's wallet, I stopped asking. Not because I didn't want to know, but because I already knew the answer, and had no interest in hearing it dressed up in the same tired tone. Michael started staying out more often. The excuses were polished. A technical issue, an emergency meeting, an old friend dropping by from out of town. Everything lined up, timing, context, even verifiable if I wanted. But I didn't want to. I didn't check anymore. I just noted it. Quietly. Like a judge listening to both sides, then making the decision silently. No further questions needed. Every time he went out, I didn't text. Didn't ask questions. Just folded his shirt and left it on the chair, cleaned up dinner with one plate untouched, and went to bed earlier than usual. Inside, there was no noise. But it was the kind of silence that happens when all the air has been sucked out of a room. One night, Michael came home around 2 a.m. He turned on the light, walked through the living room, and stopped when he saw me sitting there. I wasn't waiting, I just couldn't sleep. He flinched a little, then smiled faintly, took off his coat, and sat down across from me like everything was normal. I stood up, about to head to the bedroom, when I saw his bare back. And there they were, 3 long red scratches running from his shoulder down. Clear as day in the dim light. I didn't ask, didn't frown, didn't smirk. I just said one thing, "You're home." Then I walked straight into the bathroom. Didn't lock the door, didn't breathe heavily, but my heart was pounding like it was about to break through my chest. I stood under the hot water for nearly 30 minutes, fully clothed, eyes wide open, like I was trying to numb myself. Outside, Michael didn't come in. Maybe because he knew, maybe because he had nothing left to say. By day, I still argued in court like nothing had happened. Sharp logic, steady tone, firm steps. Everyone thought I was the definition of control and composure. But at night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling like it might answer the one question I never dared to ask out loud. Why am I still here? I started waking up at 3 a.m., more and more. No nightmares, no strange noises, just my body stopped knowing when it was supposed to sleep. Michael didn't notice, or pretended not to. Every morning, he still poured the coffee and asked, "Did you sleep okay?" I nodded. He smiled. I nodded again. It was a script. No stumbles, no repeated lines, no need for rehearsal. Then came the shift. He changed tactics, started playing the victim. Anytime I pulled away or didn't respond to his half-hearted small talk, Michael would start in. "I know I'm not perfect, but do you know how my mom left me? I grew up with a father who never loved me. You're the only one who ever made me feel like I mattered." At first I listened. Then I memorized the lines. I knew exactly what he was doing. Making me feel guilty for losing patience with someone who had suffered. Making me afraid that if I walked away, I'd become the one who abandoned him, just like his mother. It was the smartest kind of manipulation, using real pain to cover up bad behavior. I wrote the divorce papers 3 times. The first time was after I found out he'd lied about a work trip. I'd hired someone to check, and I knew exactly who he was with. The second was after a fight in the kitchen, where he screamed in my face that I was cold like some robot incapable of love. The third was after I sat drinking alone until 3 a.m., staring at our wedding photo, unable to remember what I even felt that day. All 3 times, I tore up the papers the next morning, not out of hesitation, not out of regret. It's just, I wasn't ready to end it. I was still angry, still had reasons to stay quiet, to watch, to keep playing the role. When the real ending came, there'd be nothing left. And I wasn't ready to face that. I wasn't sure I still loved him. But I wasn't ready to walk away. Not because I was afraid of losing him, but because I didn't know who I'd be without the anger. I didn't write a 4th set of divorce papers. I hired a private investigator. Not because I needed more proof. I'm a lawyer. I know a suspicious bank transfer or a hotel bill during work hours is enough to start a case. But I didn't want a case. I just wanted to see it with my own eyes, to finally face the truth I'd been avoiding for too long. 3 days later, the investigator called back. His voice was flat. No sympathy, no judgment. The kind of voice I knew well. The voice of someone just doing their job. He's seeing a younger woman, around 23, 24. They usually meet at an apartment in the north side of the city. I've got photos, clear shots. I told him to email them. No shaking, no panic. She was young, long black hair, clear eyes, the kind of woman I used to be, a long time ago, and I knew exactly how easy it was to believe in a man who seemed broken and full of regret. She wasn't unattractive. But what made me pause was the way she looked at Michael in the photos, so full of trust, full of hope. I used to look at him like that. I found out where she worked, an intern at a small law office. One afternoon I sent her an email. No threats, no accusations, just an invitation. Meet me, woman to woman. No need to prepare anything. I'm not here to blame you. She came, on time, wearing a white blouse, hands slightly trembling, eyes uncertain when she saw me. Probably recognized me from the photo Michael kept on his desk. I didn't sit behind a desk. I pulled a chair across from her and kept my voice steady, polite. I'm not here to ask how much you love him. I just want to ask you one thing. Have you ever felt like you were being led somewhere without even realizing it? She went silent. Then, after a moment, she broke down. Not the kind of crying that comes from shame. The kind that happens when someone realizes they've trusted the wrong person, too quickly, too deeply. I handed her a box of tissues, said nothing. When she wiped her tears, I added softly, "You're not the first, and you probably won't be the last unless he stops." She left soon after. No apology. No explanation, and I didn't need either. I watched the door close behind her, not with relief, not with anger. Just the way it feels when you finish the last page of a book. No climax. No twist. Just the end, because it's time. That night, I got home earlier than usual. Michael was in the kitchen, cooking something, maybe to make peace, or maybe just because it was his turn. He saw me and tensed up a little. I didn't wait for him to say anything. I hung up my coat, washed my hands, and sat down at the table like it was any other night. He brought over the food and sat across from me. The air was thick. I cut a piece, lifted it to my mouth, chewed slowly. A few minutes in, he put his fork down and said, "You had me followed?" I didn't answer. I just looked him straight in the eye. His voice tightened. "You always have to control everything. Always watching, judging. You make me feel small, like I'm nothing." I still didn't say a word. I just sat up straighter. He sighed and went on. "You never really needed me. You just needed someone to fill a role. A perfect marriage, a husband to parade around at dinner parties." This time I smiled. Not cold, not cruel, just calmly. "And you needed someone just naive enough to believe you were the one who needed saving." He froze. For the first time in months, I saw his face actually change. Not angry, not defensive, just lost. I stood up, poured myself a glass of water, and walked out to the balcony. That night, we didn't say another word. He slept on the couch. I slept in the bedroom. No texts, no knocks, just a few steps apart and total silence. And for the first time in months, I slept deeply. No dreams, no waking up in the middle of the night. I didn't feel hurt anymore, just like I was still acting in a play, only now there was no audience. After that night, Michael and I stopped fighting. No more vague questions, no more passive digs, no more victim monologues. Everything went quiet. Not the quiet of peace, the quiet of distance. I started living on my own rhythm. No announcements, no permissions. I signed up for a painting class on Tuesdays, meditation on Thursdays, spa on weekends. Every morning, I got up early, ran around the lake, and bought fresh flowers for the living room. Michael still lived in the same house, walked past all these little changes of mine, but he was no longer the center of anything. I didn't try to look happy. I didn't perform strength. I just stopped letting him exist inside my emotional space. One night, I came home from dinner with friends, past 11. Michael was watching the news. When he saw me walk in, he asked, "Where were you?" I took off my coat, set my bag down, and replied, "Are you asking because you care, or because it surprised you?" He looked at me and said nothing. I didn't wait for an answer. Every time he tried to spark something, I gave him back the same invisibility I had felt throughout our marriage. I didn't avoid him. We still had dinner together sometimes if food was already made. Still split the bills. Still exchanged a few short lines about the power bill, the elevator maintenance schedule, sometimes borrowed tools from each other. But between him and me, there was nothing left of husband and wife. No tension, no closeness, just two people cohabiting, completely unfamiliar. I remember one morning, while I was putting on lipstick before work, Michael walked into the kitchen, looked at me for a long moment, then asked, "Where do you go all the time these days?" I smiled at the mirror, not turning around. Places I used to hope we'd go together. He didn't respond, just stood there in silence, and I knew that silence wasn't resignation anymore. It was confusion. He didn't know how to face the woman he once hurt, especially now that she was clearly doing better without loving him. I started taking photos, not for social media, not to send to anyone, just for myself. Soft morning light over the lake, simple dinners under warm golden lamps. I was archiving my life, like I was building evidence to prove one simple truth. I'm okay. Really okay. A lot of people ask me why I still lived with Michael. I never explained. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I didn't owe one to anyone. That house was mine. That life was mine. I stayed, not to hold on to anything, but to prove I didn't have to leave to win. He was there. He saw every change in me, every laugh, every new dress, every message from friends lighting up my phone, and he was no longer the person I waited for a response from. I wasn't cold. I just no longer cared to be warm. One night, as I was reading in the living room, Michael stood in the doorway, silent for a long time, then said, "You've really changed." I closed the book and looked at him. "No, I'm just becoming who I used to be, before I let you dull her down." He didn't argue, didn't sigh, just turned and walked away. I got up, made myself a cup of tea, looked out the window. The city was still moving, still shifting. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel bitterness. Just light. I didn't file for divorce. I didn't move out. I didn't post cryptic quotes online. I just chose to live in a way that made every step I took in that house a quiet reminder to him. He once thought I couldn't live without him. But he was wrong. Michael still lives in that house, and so do I. But our lives no longer intersect. I didn't avoid him. I didn't fake being busy to hide how I felt. The truth was, I didn't feel anything. No anger, no regret, no need to clarify anything. I woke up early, ran a few laps around the park, grabbed coffee and a croissant from my usual corner cafe, came home, played soft music, and read a few pages before starting work. A string of small, steady things. And it felt good. I still showed up to work on time, still ate dinner alone, still cleaned up after myself. I didn't text him when he got home late, didn't say anything when I went out, and I never extended an invitation to talk things through. Someone asked me, "Do you have a new boyfriend yet?" I smiled. I don't need a boyfriend, but I do have a few pleasant connections. Simple meetups, no goals, no expectations. A few good morning texts, a few check-ins from people who genuinely value my presence, even just as a friend. I'm not looking for someone to replace Michael. I'm just finding myself again, and living like he never had the power to break me in the first place. He noticed. He saw it clearly. And the moment he stopped being the center of my world, Michael started to feel unsettled. He was no longer being blamed, questioned, or confronted by me. But that's exactly when he realized he no longer had any hold on me. He was like an old piece of decor no one touched anymore. Not thrown away, but with no purpose left to serve. One evening, as I was getting ready to go out for dinner with friends, Michael said, "You've really changed lately." I slipped on my coat, adjusted my hair in the mirror, and replied, "Thank you." He watched me a little longer than usual, then asked, "Are you seeing someone?" I turned, looked him straight in the eye and said, "Yes, I'm seeing myself again, and we're a great match." He went quiet. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Not because I had changed too much, but because I no longer needed validation from him. A week later, he started to change. He tried cooking more, started asking how I was, sometimes even left flowers on the table. One day I came home from work and found a note. "Hope your day was kind to you." I didn't feel moved, I just smiled. That night, while I was making tea, he came into the kitchen. He hesitated for a moment, then said, "I want to start over. I know I messed up, but I still think we could fix this." I set my teacup down, turned to him and said, "I don't need you to change anymore. Everything's fine now." My voice was soft, not angry, not cold, but clear. I turned away, carried my tea to the living room, sat down and played a familiar jazz track. Michael stood there for a few more seconds, then quietly walked back to his room. I didn't look back. The next morning, I woke up early, like always. Put on my workout clothes, tied my hair, grabbed my headphones, and headed out. As I passed through the living room, he was sitting there, silent. The early light coming through the curtains gave the whole room a hazy, cinematic glow. I opened the door without rushing, didn't turn around. I wasn't leaving forever. I was just stepping out to do something I enjoyed. But even that, in his eyes now, said everything. I no longer need him to live well. I still live in that house, but I live in a way he'll never be able to forget me, even though I no longer need him at all. I used to think leaving was the end. But sometimes, staying, without depending, is the ending that carries the most weight. I don't forgive him anymore. I don't hate him either. I just live exactly how I want to. And that, for me, is the quietest victory I've ever won. I no longer hope Michael will change. I don't need anyone to validate that I was right. Every day I walk past him with a soft smile is a reminder to myself, I'm no longer stuck in that emotional swamp. Not everyone has to leave to escape a relationship. Sometimes, saving yourself is as simple as no longer putting them at the center of your life. I still live in that house, but I live in a way he'll never forget me, even though I don't need him anymore. I used to think leaving was the end, but I've learned, sometimes staying without depending is the ending that truly carries weight. I don't forgive him anymore. I don't hate him either. I just live, fully, freely, the way I want. And that, for me, is the quietest and most powerful victory I've ever had. I no longer wait for Michael to change. I don't need anyone to tell me I was right. Every time I walk past him with a small, calm smile, I remind myself, I'm no longer stuck in the mud of old emotions. Not everyone has to walk away to escape a relationship. Sometimes, all it takes is no longer putting them at the center, and that's how you save yourself. What do you think about the way I faced my unfaithful husband? Do you like the choice I made to respond not with noise or revenge, but by simply living better right in front of him? If you think that's a good way to handle it, leave a heart in the comments. Or, if you have a sharper way to handle a situation like this, don't hesitate to share. Your response might be exactly what someone stuck in the storm of love and betrayal needs to hear right now. Thanks for listening to my story. See you next time.